Hello, folks. Scott Galbraith here, and welcome to another roundtable. Actually, today is a director's roundtable. For those of you who have seen my first two roundtables that I did with a couple of well-established Christian actors, it occurred to me while I was doing the first one that at some point I should give the other side of the camera a say, and it made me realize that I could do a director's roundtable. And let me tell you, I don't know how I'm going to top another roundtable after this one. The lineup that we got here today is kind of one that has just had me excited all day. I'm going to introduce you to the director panel that we have here today. First up, this is a guy who has been a great friend of mine for many years. This gentleman made my dream of working in the Christian film industry come true when he said, Scott, that play you wrote, The Reconciled, would make a great movie. And then he agreed to co-write the script with me, direct the film, and even let me reprise my role from the play in the movie. His directing and credits include that film, A Murder of Innocence, which I was also in, Out of the Darkness, Going the Distance, and the upcoming Narrow Road. He is the president of Justice Pictures. Please say hello to Sean Justice. Sean, how you doing?
My biggest fan club is my twin brother.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for taking the time to join us here today. It's nice to have you.
Great to be here.
All right. Next up, we have a gentleman who is a Emmy-nominated producer for television and documentaries. He is a gentleman who is the president of Compel Media. He is the producer of the creationist series Awesome Science. And this guy also spent 9 months playing underwater jump rope with Sean because he is Sean's identical twin brother. Please say hello to the president of Compel Media, Kyle Justice. How you doing, Kyle?
Thank you. Great to be here, Scott. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. Nice to have you. Always good to see you. You know, first time I did one of these roundtables, I had two guys with the same first name. Now I have two guys with the same face. So this is very interesting. Okay. And the third person we have here is a guy who, in my opinion, when it comes to faith-based material, has changed the game a little bit. Because this gentleman is the creator, writer, and producer of what we believe is the very first faith-based cop drama for Amazon Prime to carry. And when he said he was willing to appear on this roundtable, it was just awesome. Please say hello to the writer, director, and producer and creator of the wildly popular Amazon show Vindication, Jared O'Flaherty. Nice to have you with us, Jared. How you doing?
Yes.
I'm good, Scott. When you started the introduction saying it was a wonderful person and a great friend, all of us kind of lit up waiting to see who it was going to
be. You know, I should tell you, like I said, this is a great lineup that we have here today. And I'm sure that both Sean and Kyle right now are saying in their heads, you know, Scott, all the directors that you're Facebook friends with, why do you call my brother? Well, you know, it could be because I'm very well known as a twin enthusiast, and anytime I can get a pair of twins together, it's a lot of fun. But no, actually, that was just the icing on the cake. It also could be, and having Jared here with the two of them also could be because Sean and I have made no secret of the fact that we're tremendous fans of Vindication, so we might be fanboying Jared the whole time. But no. Oh, I'm sorry, Kyle. I wasn't sure. My apologies. It also could be because whenever you get the Justice brothers together, they are nothing but a hoot. Let me tell you that right now. No, but those things are all just icing on the cake. There really is a legitimate reason why I wanted you three gentlemen for the first Directors Roundtable. It is because, Mr. Sean Justice, you, I know, do a lot of corporate video work, and your passion really is feature films. Kyle, as I mentioned in your intro, you are an Emmy-winning producer for television, and you produced a lot of documentary series. And Jared, you have produced a Amazon television series, and I know you got your start in Christian video ministry. So between the three of you, we have a lot of genres and a lot of areas covered here. So I thought, you know, if I really wanted to, rather than just have like 3 feature film directors or 3 guys who do documentaries or 3 guys who do TV, I wanted to cover as much of the director spectrum as we possibly could. So that's one of the reasons why I thought you 3 would be a great lineup. Now, one of the things I did with the Actors Roundtable is the first thing that I did is I just went around real quickly, and I wanted everybody to tell the viewers of our program tonight what their background is and how they got into filmmaking. Now, in the interest of saving time, please try to keep your story to 5 minutes if you don't mind. Sean, why don't you go first?
Well, you know, Kyle's story and mine story are going to be real similar in the early years. Our dad was kind of an amateur filmmaker. He actually did ministry films for the camp that our churches in the Portland area owned. And I just remember, you know, being totally fascinated that my dad could shoot and organize a documentary and add music and voiceover. And I mean, for the time, it was very advanced for just an amateur. And it was also during that time that we ended up, I think, as kind of a father-son activity. My dad worked with Kyle and I to animate our Legos when we were very young. And it was just kind of that cool bonding experience. And I think provided a really good, base for Kyle and I to feel good about something and excited about something very creative. And as my dad bought a Betamax back in the 70s. And I mean, he was always kind of on the leading edge. And as he got more gear, more video cameras, Kyle and I went to a performing arts high school called Jefferson in Portland and just excelled in our craft. And by the time we were 16, we were doing videos for pay for organizations and ministries and even small companies. And so as we, just kept going, doing that together, once we graduated from high school, Kyle went to Moody Bible Institute. I stayed here in Portland and kept doing production, started my own production company when I was 19, essentially. So I've had that for over 30 years. But my heart has always been to do film. And I remember seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was 12, not Star Wars. I mean, that was a cool movie, but Raiders was kind of a pivotal movie for me to be able to see and go, wow, to show God's character, the power of God. And so I just started writing and I kept writing. And then finally I had the opportunity to make my first film in 99 called Going the Distance, partnered with the Family Research Council and to distribute it, and did well with that. And then kept writing and writing, had another opportunity, which there's a whole story behind that, to essentially shoot a film a year for 4 years, which was a pretty big undertaking. But anyway, that's turn off my texting here. So yeah, that was kind of how I came to where I am now, and I'm exploring different things, doing some writing, being hired out to actually do some stuff down in LA too. So it's very, very interesting.
Very nice. Kyle, now, yes, he is. Yes, he is. Kyle, anything to add to that story? I know that he said that yours and his would overlap a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, probably our biggest exposure to production was at Jefferson High School. They call it the Fame of the West. But we had a big television studio and editing bays, and Sean and I, we teamed up a lot on projects. But even outside of that, Sean, you forgot to mention we did our own Christian music video show, called Solid Rock Videos, and Sean was the host and I was the director, and we edited it together. That was when Christian music video shows were just getting going. But we talked about producing films, feature films for a long time, but my track kind of kept going towards the production side. I went to work for, Moody Bible Institute in the 90s, and then the Family Channel, MTM, distribution, Mary Tyler distribution. Came back from the East Coast back to here in Portland, and worked for a big post-production house doing colorist work on a big Da Vinci system. And then in 99, they laid me off, and it's like, okay, here we go. And I mean, within the first 6 months, God opened up a door to do a documentary for ESPN. And then it went to the Outdoor Channel and, all these different series. I hired Sean, several times to go out, and we traveled together. We had a blast. So it's just kind of kept going. But then I have an interest in the whole area of science and the Bible, and really started producing a lot of content there, as well as commercial, broadcast, and corporate at the same time. In this industry, all of us know if we're successful, it's not going to come from one source usually. It's going to come from a lot of sources. And so being able to do that. But right now we have over 30 documentaries, kid shows, documentaries just on that topic. We have our own subscription platform that we've established, and a lot of homeschool families use it. And so we've diversified a lot. But yeah, I don't do features yet, but a lot of documentary. But when you're talking about television shows that are half hour or documentaries that are an hour and a half, there's a lot of skill it takes to tell a continuous story for that amount of time. So I've really enjoyed it. So that's kind of my background, and that's a good overview.
Well, thank you, Kyle. Jared, your turn. You're muted.
I'm not gonna say anything, but yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. So when I graduated from high school, my graduation gift was a laptop, and this was right at the beginning of or middle of the digital video era, where you could start editing things digitally on a computer. And that summer, when I went to youth camp with my church, there was a kid there. He had a video camera, it was a Hi8 camera, it was just sitting in the bunkhouses all day. And I said, "Hey, can I use that?" So I went around and just started filming the youth camp, what was going on. And when I got home on Friday, I connected it to the computer, started editing some things. And then that Sunday at church, for the first time, I got to show all of the parents what went on the week at camp with all of their, teenagers and students. And, that was the first time that I'd had an audience for anything I'd put together. Before then, I'd done some little, VHS home video things, but it was the first time to have an audience. And I thought, hey, this is neat. So, of course, every youth event that came up after that, everyone's like, "Hey, Jared, you're making us a video, right? We want to see the new video." And year over year for about 8 to 10 years, it was just trying to improve, make it more exciting, and get better at editing. And once we moved into the high definition era where consumers could get their hands on high def cameras, I thought, now they've got this, better technology. What if we take this to the next level and do something scripted as opposed to just, teenagers dumping chocolate on themselves at camp? Let's do something. Yeah. So I did a music video for 1 year, just had gone around the church and asked for people to donate, $20 to the project. And we made a music video, and the following year did another. And the year after that, it turned now into a documentary that I did about World War II veterans. And the following year, it was a feature film, and it just kind of, snowballed, where it started as something small and continued to grow. And I was able to build on those skill sets that I developed from the early days of editing, to the music videos to grow. And that snowball continued into what is the Vindication series.
Yeah, I think that snowball is what the Lord calls a mustard seed. Just a thought. What can I say? Anyway, one other thing here, as we get started. One question that I've started adding to all of my roundtables like this. Sean, Kyle, I should tell you guys that you are not the first set of identical twin brothers who are Christian directors that I asked to be on this roundtable. I actually reached out to Dave and Rich Cristiano, but sadly they were not available, so I called you guys instead. But anyway, Rich, Rich actually gave me a question to ask the actors on the last roundtable that I did, and this is probably going to be a question that I'm going to ask everybody. If you wanted to give advice to somebody who was looking to get into directing or faith-based films, what would you tell them? Sean, why don't you go first?
Well, I think it's, really, I mean, I don't want to use Jared as an example necessarily, but I think just exactly what he did. And that's get out there, and the technologies that are available now are just incredible compared to, Hi8. They're starting with Hi8.
Yeah.
Kyle and I started.
What's that? What is Hi8?
With a VHS. Kyle and I started with VHS. Jefferson had the recorder, and we would check the gear out, and we just go do stuff and experiment and learn. The other thing I could recommend is there's so many resources on YouTube and elsewhere to kind of hone your skills. You just don't want to necessarily go out there and this is what I'm going to do. But to actually talk to other people, see what other people are saying. There's so many YouTube videos, like I said, that directors talk about how they did it. But you don't want to necessarily take on everything that everybody tells you to do, but kind of weed it out and kind of say, does that resonate with me? Oh, that's a good idea. Do I resonate with that? And if you do, you start to build your skill set, and go on from there.
All right.
And better and better.
Yes. Kyle, your thoughts on that?
I think that's really good. So that's really focused on more the technical and doing storytelling through the equipment and so on. But and Jared might go here as well. But you got to tell a good story. There are people on my side of things that can tell a really good story in 2 to 3 minutes, but they can't tell a good story in 30 minutes. And so really studying story, and then, there's some great resources and books out there about story structure and not so much script writing, but storytelling. But I think a good storyteller also needs to be familiar with a lot of different parts of fiction and even, biographies. do a lot of reading, because that really helps you to think about characters and about, you know, people that you're telling the story about. And so, you know, really not just the gear and like I said, the gear and the editing and all that, but, you know, experiment, yeah, for sure, but also study story for sure.
Okay, Jared, your turn.
The advice that I typically give, I think your question was like, hey, I want to get into filmmaking or directing. What should I do? And my response would always be, well, show me what you have done. And if you haven't done anything yet, then maybe you shouldn't be asking questions. You should be out doing something. And what I mean by that is there are so many people that they want to talk about, oh, I want to make the next Marvel feature. I'm going to shoot this. And it's just talk, but there's never any action. And I think the thing that prevents them from taking the action is that fear of failure of, if it doesn't look like it was $300 million, I don't want to make it. And I just think that's the wrong approach. You know, start with what you have. Like Sean said, the technology is there, so that's not the problem. You know, it's accessible. The tutorials are there. That's not the problem. It's just taking that step of doing something, even if it's really bad. Just do something. So that way, when someone says, well, let me see what you've done, they can look at it and tell you what your next step is. But unfortunately, and I see this, you know, I have people that want to get involved with our projects. Hey, can I get on set? Can I help out? You know, or they want to get started in this, but then guess what? Shoot day comes and guess who doesn't show up? You know? and you go, well, how serious are you about making the next Marvel feature, the next superhero movie, if you can't even show up, you know, to the first day on set? And there have been those. So that's my advice. Is just do something. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of it being bad, because your next thing after that is going to be a little better and a little better.
Yeah.
And a little better.
Yeah.
I know what you mean about people who talk a lot but don't do much, because I used to be one of them. I tell people that the day that I stopped being a talker was the day that Sean first said action on Reconciler. That was the day that all the talk stopped and action in more than one way started. I also should tell you guys that one of the things that's different about doing this with a bunch of directors rather than a bunch of actors is that I'm also an actor, and I learned pretty quickly that film direction is not my forte. I've directed a few plays, so I got nothing but respect for people who can do this. I learned that film directing takes a lot of patience that I sadly do not have. And I recently sent Sean my first and only attempt at directing something that resembled a film, and I think you'll see evidence of that throughout that. Unfortunately, that I kind of rushed a few things. Now, one other thing that I do on these roundtables, I did this on the very first one, and it went so well that I decided to continue it. Just in case we got to a point where nobody was saying anything or nobody had anything to say, I decided to write down a whole bunch of questions that I wanted to ask the folks, and I ended up with a whole bunch. And I thought, you know, rather than me just pick a random question, rather than me decide which question to do, what if I took a cue from Whose Line Is It Anyway and put them all in a hat and pulled one out randomly so that none of us actually knows what's coming next. So it's time for the hat. I have about 6 questions in here that pertain to directing, and the good Lord only knows which one will be coming first. So here we go. Let's see here. Kyle, you're muted for some reason. I don't know why. All right, there we go. First question. Here we go. Oh, this is a good one. Do you prefer filming inside or outside, and what are the advantages or disadvantages of either? Sean, why don't you go first?
Oh man. Preference. Well, preference is inside because you can control the environment a lot more. Sound is always an issue outside. You got planes going by. You have when we're shooting A Murder of Innocence, I literally think
the leaf blower guy always goes by.
I know. I think when we're shooting, and the actors can attest to this. I mean, I think this plane was like just going round, round, and just when we thought he was like, you know, veering off, he turned back. Anyway, just things like that. Your outdoor lighting can be a lot easier than indoor lighting too, because if you're moving fast, you know, you always have kind of a fill light, but then of course, you have clouds that can move in and out, and you know, you think, oh my, the continuity's gone. But if you watch enough television or even movies, sometimes you're like, wait a minute, that wide shot was under clouds, and now their close-ups are under sun. So I think it's just learning to quickly adapt to either. But I guess inside maybe would be preferred, just because you can control and move quicker, possibly. So,
Kyle?
I mean, I shoot more documentary stuff, so I love the outdoors because it's just beautiful. It's amazing. I have a drone. We can get amazing shots that way and so on. But yeah, I mean, if we're shooting interviews with a subject outdoors, all the same things Sean listed, you run into. And, one of my co-producers the other day was like, hey, is the leaf blower around? We better check first. So, so those are things. But again, I love being able to control an interview as well, as far as the lighting and the sound, and you're not at the whims of what's going on and what's going to happen. But at the same time, I've shot television shows, and my hosts were like, man, you must have something in with the man upstairs, because everywhere we go, you get the weather you want, Kyle. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. And they were Christians. It was not a Christian show. And so it spoke God's glory that he was answering that prayer. So I don't know. Anyway.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much. Jared.
Well, this is a really difficult question for me, because we're starting our shoot in 9 days from now. And it's an indoor shoot. But when we go outdoors, I've got 98-degree June heat in Texas that I've got to worry about. Sweaty actors, people needing shade, places to sit down. But then you go inside and you've got this whole COVID thing going on where we want social distancing, and I've got to cram a crew and cast into a small location. So it's something I'm thinking about every day, worrying about the heat, but also worrying about the distancing inside. But under ideal conditions, the indoors definitely, just because you can control things. The Texas heat, you turn off the air conditioner for sound purposes, and those indoors can get just as bad as outdoors. But yeah, indoors, as far as convenience on set, it works better. Outdoors usually get more attractive shots and can do bigger things. But yeah, if I had a choice, it'd be nicer to sit indoors in the air conditioning and shoot there.
As a fan of Vindication, I was happy to hear you guys were coming back for a second season, and I'm glad you guys are starting to shoot soon. So, by the way, Todd, the star of the show, was on my virtual volunteer segment, and he was just awesome. It was great to have him. All right, let's see what we have here for the next one. Yeah. That first one I pulled out was actually the last one I wrote, so I'm wondering if I shuffled these up properly, or if I just grabbed the first one on top.
So
All right.
Go in reverse order now. Ask Jared first.
You're letting Sean get he gets all the low-hanging fruit answers.
Yeah, I know.
I usually. All right, you want me to change the order? I'll change the order. I'll change
in the middle.
All right, okay.
You just need to be up for grabs.
Okay, all right. This is a question that technically some of you already answered, but this goes as far as whether it was professional or whether it was you were just getting started. What was the very first thing you ever directed, pro or amateur? Doesn't matter.
Wow.
I always say
that. You made it really reach back, but go ahead, Jared.
Okay, I always say that summer project was my first thing that had an audience, but actually my sophomore year of high school, in science class, we had this project of making soap and had to present it to the rest of the class. And my team that I was on, we did a video and I edited that, and I was also the lead actor in it, so I was directing myself, but I had to tell some other peers what to do. And, that was the first time that it wasn't my own brothers and sisters that I was directing. So I'll consider that one. So it was sophomore year of high school on VHS in science class.
Cool. Kyle.
And when I was 13, we started doing classroom type projects. We would go out and we would, shoot different pieces. Sean and I went to Jefferson a year early. So it was 13, as eighth graders. So we did a lot. I don't remember the specific one. I mean, I would say the really big project we did was that music video show. I was behind the camera, and Sean and I were kind of co-directing, but that was fun. We had a lot of fun concepting and then, co-directing together on that. So I don't know. I'm sure there was something before that.
Yeah, well, maybe that's an interesting thing. Sean, do you remember anything before that, Sean?
Yeah, I was thinking back. I think, my dad, bless his heart, he would actually let Kyle and I take out his Super 8 camera in very limited, form, and we'd go shoot little videos or films with our friends, and we'd direct those. I can't remember exactly when it came about, but Kyle and I actually created this variety show for our family called Justice World.
Yes.
And we even had a song that, Justice World is the program that everybody watches. We'd start it with that. And we'd interview our family, and anyway, that was
Yeah.
memory.
Yeah. Jared, didn't I tell you having both of them here would be a hoot? All right. All right, let's see what the next one is. I think that I'm probably going to be, we started this at 7:15 my time. That's 4:15 for the Justice Boys and 6:15. So I'm probably going to be getting the 10-minute warning here just about any time. This is actually, because I'm not a director, I'm not hijacking any of the conversations. You guys are doing all the talking. That's why time isn't getting away from me like it did with the actors one. So.
What's
I
the
don't know
question?
about the Justice guys, but I'm expecting some magic trick to happen with this hat. I feel like we're getting out here.
You know what's funny is I find what's interesting here is that I actually, the reason why Todd ended up on my virtual volunteer was I asked you originally, but you sadly weren't available, and so I went to Todd and he was. And then when I did the round table for actors, I asked Todd to be in that, but he wasn't available, but you were available for this. So it's kind of interesting how things worked out. But anyway. All right, let's see what the next one here is. Yeah, actually, this is actually my friend Ben's hat. It's a top hat he wore at his wedding, if you can believe that. But I have a 24.5-inch head, and this is the only top hat I've ever found that fits my head. So on the rare occasion I get a request, if somebody wants some magician with a top hat, I just, there it is. Just got the 10-minute warning right now. Okay, so we got time for probably a question or two more. I'll let you guys know when we're getting down to the end here. Okay. So short version is my friend lets me borrow the hat anytime I need a top hat. Okay. Is there a story you've always wanted to make that you haven't had a chance to yet? And this time to mix things up, we're going to make Kyle go first.
What?
Yeah, there we go. Hey, well, you prompted this. You said don't go in the same order every time.
I think, one that I thought about for years because it was so inspiring was, so you had Eric Liddell or whatever do the Olympics, as Chariots of Fire. But what happened to him afterwards, that he went to China as a missionary, and he died, when the Japanese came into China. It's like Paul Harvey's, the rest of the story. Because his dedication really was to honor the Lord in Christ. So I think that'd be one that I'd love to make if I had the opportunity at some point.
All right. So that and this will be the first time we won't go Justice Brother back to back. Jared, I'll go to you next for that one.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier how I did a World War II documentary film, and one of the veterans that I interviewed for that told the most incredible, amazing, emotional story. And I've always thought, man, if I had the means to tell this story right, I would love to put it into a film because I love that era. And again, his story, if I were to take the spoiler, the high level of it, he was shot down over Italy, was put into a hospital there guarded by the Nazis, and, was rescued by the Americans when they came through. And when he was going to get on a ship to, be sent back home, he runs into his dad. His dad, hearing that he had been shot down, basically hitchhiked across the Atlantic to Italy to go find his son. And I was like,
that is an incredible story.
Yeah, it was. And I've heard it from the guy's own mouth, and wow. I just thought, wow, what a story you could tell, because you could tell what was going on at home. You could tell what was going on in Italy. And then that relationship with him and his father, it wasn't because they were on the best of terms, so it was just a lot to explore there. And I would love to tell that story one day.
Now, I left Sean to last on this one on purpose because being somebody who's collaborated with him on a couple scripts, I think I know the answer to this. So,
for a long time, it was Frank Peretti's The Oath, which I thought would make a pretty cool movie. But then, as many people know, in 2012, we had one of our sons pass away due to a drowning. And the way that Caleb lived his life earthside was very unique. And he was just, God gave him incredible insights that he would share with me and be like, whoa, and there's just a perspective that he had that I think would be really encouraging to kind of tell his story. And it's not necessarily about him, but it's about how he lived his life. And, you know, I always say that God had him on a sprint, not a marathon, because he was sharing stuff with me and many other people that could testify that was like, who is this kid? You know, and why did God give him such incredible insight so early on in his life? So I'd want to make that film to be an encouragement to other young people and to really encourage them to really develop their relationship with the Lord in a very deep and unique way. So, and to honor Caleb's memory here at Earthside.
Yes. Well, two things. Number one of the only regrets I have about working with you, Sean, is that I never got to meet Caleb in person, unfortunately. You and I were working long distance. We didn't meet face to face until after he passed, unfortunately. And the other thing I should tell you is that I just want to bet with myself. I had a feeling that was going to be your answer. All right. We're down to 5 minutes here, and I've learned not to do more than one of these if you have more than 5 minutes, because if you watch the last actor roundtable I did, I had to cut the guys off very quickly. So this will be the last question here. All right. Last question here. That's not a good one. I'm going to do another one.
Time is running out.
Yeah. The question was, what's the most difficult part of directing? That would take too long, I think.
People.
Yeah. Oh, okay. This is a better one. Is that never a dull moment? Never a dull moment. I love this. Okay. Actor or TV personality you would like to work with one day? Let's see. We'll go in the original order first. John?
Wow. You know, I had a list at one time. And it's funny because like I wrote, one of my scripts that I have in my library, it's about a preacher who came out of the gangs and actually is like a pastor, and ended up going and getting saved, going into high tech, doing very well, and then retiring early, and ends up working for a church. Well, he witnesses a murder and ends up going on the run, is helped by a prostitute who he ends up ministering to, and they're on the run together. But he's an ex gang member that knows all the tricks of all that. And while he's on the chase by these bad cops, he ends up, you know, they think they're dealing with a preacher, you know, when all in all, they're dealing with someone who's very skilled that knows what they're doing. So I thought, I always wrote the script with Denzel Washington in mind. So I think he would be cool to work with. He just seems like a very skilled actor, of course, but a good guy too. So, you know, you always want to work with people that are top of the list because they help make you better at what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. He's on Michael Joyner's bucket list as well. He wants to work with him someday as well. Kyle.
You're going to laugh, but I had him on my list too.
Really?
He just seems like he is a quality actor, but in interviews I've seen with him, he's pretty serious about his relationship with the Lord too. You know, and that's really cool. He's a quality guy, and I think I'd love to do. I don't have a project that I'd love to work with him on, but anyway.
Okay, that leaves you, Jared. Are you going to say Denzel too?
No, mine are a little more modest, and I'll be surprised if anyone here knows who they are. First one would be a guy named Brad Leland. He plays Buddy Garrity on the TV series Friday Night Lights, and I watched 5 seasons of that because I loved his character so much and what he brought to the screen. He's actually local to Dallas-Fort Worth. I've been in contact with his agent before, and they even said, you know, that he does, you know, some indie projects every once in a while, so it's not that far out of reach. And even this week, I got an email from a Screen Actors Guild representative here in the area that was like, oh, just so you know, I emailed Brad and told him about Vindication and to take a look. So might be within reach at some point. That's one of them. The other one that kind of dates myself as being a kid of the 90s, but Paul Gosselaar, who played the lead on the TV series Saved by the Bell. He just always seemed like a fun, genuine guy. He's been willing to reprise that character even later in his career and later in life, and done it with a smile because he knows audiences love it. And I thought he's a talented guy and be fun to work with. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Jared. Well, we are down to the 2-minute mark here, and I think it would take too long, like I said, for me to draw another question. And so what I always do when I have a minute or or less left is I let my panelists, as I call you guys, if there's anything either of you want to ask each other real quickly, go right ahead. Anything any of you want to say, or anything you want the people who are going to watch this to know about? I know the second season of Vindication is starting to film. Any idea when that'll be out, Jared?
Oh, I don't. We're shooting 2 episodes now, coming up, like I said, 9 days. So that's the first 2 episodes. I don't know what's coming after that. You know, a lot of us don't know what's going to happen once flu season and cold season hits, and if there will be any filming. I'll say that I don't know if all of you were involved in the Reconciler or just 2 of you, but man, I really enjoyed that show.
Well, thank you.
Watched it one night. We were in the process of moving, and I kept the DVD out. It didn't get packed, and then I was able to eventually watch it, and really enjoyed what you guys did with that.
Thank you.
Kyle actually brought. He mentioned his drone and GoPro earlier. He actually brought that to the set, and he got this great shot. Unfortunately, the park was supposed to be closed, and we weren't actually closed. So I don't. Is that the reason why we didn't end up being able to use the shot, Sean?
No, Kyle. Actually.
Well, actually, yeah, we don't have time because we're down to less than a minute. I'm sorry. We're down to less than a minute. Kyle, you've been.
It never got used.
It never got used. So this is going to shut off probably in the next 30 seconds. So Sean, Kyle, Jared, thank you very much for being part of the first Directors Roundtable. God bless, and I'll see you when I see you. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
I got it.